It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome back to another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. Despite what you might think, I am Zachary Smith, joined as always by Alan Saunders. Alan, not as lit as we have been the last couple days in the car there. Not to say sunshine, but there was at least some lighting going on. Not as much tonight, but how are we feeling?
I'm feeling good. And how are you feeling today, Smitty? You know, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about your day. Maybe how you've been doing.
You got to be watching to get that. You're lucky I didn't get up and just walk away. I at least sat here for you.
We needed poor Micaiah Cherry, the Steelers PR person, to just chime in with thanks afterwards. I did apologize to her for the awkwardness of that interaction. I guess you should tell the people what we're joking about.
By the way, I just want to say first and foremost, though, very few interactions with Micaiah, but it at least seems to me like she's the absolute best. So shout out to
she's Micaiah. Absolutely great. Yes.
Honestly, I might just start doing this on the pod anyway with the Shiesty because it kind of hides the double chin a little bit. Like it kind of just nicely, you know, it makes me look better, I think, to be quite honest with you. So I'm all about it. But no, Alan, you might be public enemy number one right now in terms of Steelers fans, which, you know, always looking for one. You kind of step into that batter's box quite a bit, I feel like, whether you intend to or not. And today, the reason being, yes, George Pickens a question regarding the play that we've talked about quite a bit going back to the game against the Chiefs. Russell Wilson and him not being on the same page and what his response to that was. And, you know, he fired back asking if it was something that you were saying or Russ was saying about them not being on the same page. You said, no, Russ said that you guys were not on the same page. A lot of people taking issue with those exact words not coming out of Russell Wilson's mouth. The fact he didn't verbatim say, hey, George and I were not on the same page on that play. And yeah, you're kind of, like I said, you're kind of within the crosshairs right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what Russ said. I mean, he didn't say those exact words, but that's what he said. There is no possible meaning for – I thought he was going to go vertical, and then he did not, other than them not being on the same page. I was honestly really surprised that George pushed back against them not being on the same page because, I mean, Russ had already said it, and it was painfully obvious to, like, the entire universe. I mean, Russ wasn't the only one that said it. 1,000 people said it. I said it. I mean – I think, honestly, like, that is probably the most favorable to George way to pose that question. I mean,
that's what I say. It's not like it's placing blame on him.
It could have been like, hey, George, like, Ben Roethlisberger, a Steelers icon, and about 17 other Hall of Famers said that you dogged it on that play, and that's why Russell Wilson threw an interception. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, right. T.O. directly calling him out on Twitter for that play as well.
And what other? I mean, obviously they weren't. I mean, unless I don't know. Is George's implication there that Russ actually knew that George was not going to run any deeper than that, and he still threw it into triple coverage? I mean, like I don't know what. Mm-hmm. Just a bizarre to me way to refute the question. My guess is he just didn't want to talk about the play at all, and that was his method of making that happen.
And at least from like my standpoint, right? Like I understand it for you're trying to get an answer there. You can't just not ask questions because of what you presume you are or aren't going to get out of a player. And with George Pickens, I feel like especially like, you know what you're getting at this point in terms of a lack of answer. But like I was not necessarily surprised by the amount of people that took issue with it. But like what did surprise me is we've talked all week really about the communication stuff on the defensive side of the ball. No one seems to have this approach in terms of like, from a fan base perspective, in terms of like sheltering or babying the player, taking their side when it comes to what's going on the defensive side. I wonder why, you know, George Pickens in this situation, not for his answer or anything like that, like why people feel like he needs to be coddled in this way.
Yeah, Minkah Fitzpatrick had just been grilled for about 5 to 10 minutes about the miscommunications and the problems on defense. And there was no ambiguity left about where the responsibility for those errors in this, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, clearly they were not on the same page. Clearly the play was an important one that went badly for the Steelers. And, the one criticism I saw that I think is somewhat fair is that, hey, that was 8 days ago. And, like, why does it matter now? Well, for one, that was the first time George had talked to the media at all since the game. He didn't talk to us in the locker room after the game. He didn't talk at all week. I would have loved to have asked George that question at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, but was not given that opportunity. Secondly, like, the question was forward-facing. It wasn't about, like, who was at fault for the play. It was, hey, what did you guys do to clear this up? Which is a perfectly reasonable line of questioning going into an important game in the postseason.
Yep. Well, that if you didn't say that, that's what I was going to say, because that's kind of the way I was looking at it. Was like, yeah, you're referring to one play, but it's like a bigger picture issue, right? Like, if that continues to happen, that's a red flag. So it's not like, yeah, it was one instance that was being brought up there, but it's part of potentially a bigger issue. Is what do you do to make sure that doesn't continue to happen, or what have you done? So I don't know. From my perspective, like, as a fan, being on here talking about it now, would I have cared about what his answer was to that one specific thing? Probably not, but I'm one person within the fan base. And like I said, I understand that it's your job to ask those types of things. So,
yeah, I mean, if he gives like a normal player answer, yeah, we got together and figured it out, we don't think it's going to be a problem going forward, it probably does not get any reaction whatsoever. But, somebody that I really respect was in my mention saying, like, well, you're going to get that kind of answer from George. And, like, that's probably true. Like, I'm not asking George a question under the, like, fairy tale assumption that he's just going to, like, oh, well, that's a really good question. Well, thanks for asking. And by the way, like, here's a storybook about why, like, this and this and that. But, like, it's like, I can't be responsible for his reaction. I just have to ask. My job is to ask fair questions that are relevant, where the answer is relevant. And, like, that's a fair question, and the answer is relevant. And I like, you can try to, ask questions in a way that you're going to get a certain answer, or you're going to get a certain type of response. But, like, I think George has made it pretty clear that he doesn't want to do that, and that he's just going to answer how he's going to answer. So, like, I don't feel like it's on me to try to get him to not answer that way.
Yeah. And I replied to a couple people kind of saying that same thing, because, the fact we do this podcast together and kind of go hand in hand at this point, I had people in my mentions.
Don't feel like you got to defend me, Smitty. I can take, I'm Jon Snow with the sword, man. I don't need anybody behind me.
I'm also half joking, because I kind of jumped into it. Like, I myself put out something about it. So I just said, not even like related to football, I said, apply this to any situation. If somebody says they were expecting somebody to do something, they did something else, how else do you interpret that or categorize that other than saying that those two were not on the same page? There's no way that we're this obtuse as a collective.
Yeah. I mean, like, people are taking issue with the fact that Russ did not use those exact words, as if that is not exactly what Russ meant. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, that's absurd. Clearly, they were not on the same page, and also just as clearly, that is what Russ said, even if he did not use those exact words. And I really, I'm standing there in the locker room. I don't have Russ's quote in front of me to quote him verbatim, but everyone knows that's what he said, and that is what he said.
Let me ask you this. I know that you take pride in your work. Obviously, you'll stand 10 toes down on it, stand on business. But if you could, was there anything that you would have done differently in that exchange? Like you said, you didn't have the full quote. If you knew that was going to be a question that you were going to ask, like, ahead of time, would you maybe have liked to have had that, or no? Like, that's just not how you do it.
Like, I knew somebody needed to ask that question. I didn't know if it was going to be me, but it needed to be asked, or some version of it needed to be asked. And, I thought about it. I don't think I had any reasonable expectation for him to push back on the notion that him and Russ were not on the same page. Like, I don't. Like, there's times where I've gone into questions and I've gotten myself in trouble because I've been unprepared. where like you look at the situation and say, hey man, I really should have known that beforehand. That definitely happens. Like, I don't say all the time, but like over the course of 12, now 13 years in this business, yeah, that's absolutely happened, where I've gone into an interview not having as many facts as I should have to be prepared for the situation. But I don't see how I was supposed to expect him to push back on Russ and him not being on the same page, nor does it make any sense for him to push back on that because it was obvious and it was true, in addition to the fact that his quarterback said it. I wonder what he would – I'm not saying I wonder what he would have said if I just said I'm saying it. Like, because it doesn't make any difference. Russ said it. I said it. Terrell Owens said it. Ben Roethlisberger said it. Nate Burleson said it. Like 100,000, probably 500,000 people said it, since watching that game. I don't like, to me, it was just a very clear attempt to just dodge the question and not come up with an answer. I don't really think that. The one thing I will say is I believe that George didn't know that Russ had said that. George very notoriously does not pay any attention to like the things that are being written and said around the team. So I'm sure he didn't know that Russ had said that, but is what it is.
And that's, you were saying you kind of wonder what he would have responded with if you said that I said it, but I am curious, like if he had known ahead of time that Russ said that and was just like asked about Russ, say what his response would have been in that case. Like, I don't know. I could see it going a lot of different directions, especially because of who we're talking about, but like, another we could stay specifically on this, but what I wanted to, because that was obviously the end. Like we talked about, Mekhi kind of shut it off after that. I was wondering if that was supposed to be the case, or like you expected him to continue.
We got the last question before that, so that was that was going to be the end.
Okay, so like, what was he asked prior to nothing obviously related to that? Then was asked prior to that.
Yeah, that was the first time anything about the interception had been asked. It was all about the game against the Bengals, and as it should be,
Okay. Well, did he say anything else compelling within that? Because again, you never know.
No, he doesn't really engage very often in the question being asked. He said that when he said that they feel like when they're going up against a team like the Bengals, the offense knows they have to score. They can't just, it can't just be yards and good feelings. Like it's got to go in the end zone because you have an expectation that that's what's going to come from the other side. And I'm paraphrasing here, Smitty. Those are not his exact words. Please do not think that I may be directly quoting someone when I'm just having a conversation.
I'll have to go back and see what he actually said.
But yeah, I mean, he and I think that's the way this offense needs to be approaching this game, because I think the Steelers defense is going to play a lot better. I said that in Morning Rush this morning, but you can lose this game by having a bunch of really nice drives that end in field goals. That's 100% correct.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason that I asked that is I was wondering if there was something about like his answer to other questions or body language that would have maybe been like a read for like, this is how he's going to respond. Like,
oh no, I mean the fact that like we talk to George almost every Friday, today for Steelers week purposes as a Friday, and it was like 45 minutes after like the usual time. So like, I don't know. I'll just like, the media access rules from the NFL are that the players have to be available to talk to us at least once a week during the week and after every game. I don't have any problem with people saying, I don't want to talk to you right now or to anybody right now. And it sucks that like they get fined for that, but like, that's not on me. I would, if like the idea is you don't want to answer any questions and you're just going to give one word answers and, argue with the premise of a perfectly valid question, I would simply prefer to not do it at that point. But like, I think the NFL like sort of forces this interaction, and I understand it from their perspective. They want players to be available to the media. I'm just not sure like who that interaction was helping, because I don't really think it helped me understand any more about the team or the game, and I know it certainly wasn't what George wanted to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always been a part of me from a fan perspective that has kind of questioned that. I know that it's obviously important, not this one exchange, but just in general, having the players available to you and stuff. Somebody jokingly replied to me and said, I'm guessing George didn't have many votes for the Chief Award then.
Yeah, I don't think he got any. I mean, I can see both sides of that. Like, I've never gotten upset about having an interview request declined. I ask. If they say no, especially if they're willing to do it respectfully, I appreciate that. I don't feel like I have a right to talk to anyone. I also feel like you have to earn it. Like, you got to go in there and do the work. I don't just show up day one and say, okay, where's my interviews? I'm there every day. I'm with the team from OTAs on. Heck, half this team I covered before they were Steelers at the Combine or the Senior Bowl or a Pro Day. And so I think, you know, the other thing I want to push back on is I had some people who were not mad at me, who were maybe agreeing or supportive of me, but were saying like, oh man, this team, like, what a trash locker room. The culture's bad. Like, I don't think that either. George not wanting to do media doesn't mean that like George is a bad guy or that the locker room culture is broken or that like this is all Mike Tomlin's fault. Like, it is what it is. It's like, like I don't think George and I are ever going to be friends, but it's not like him not wanting to talk to the media and him like arguing with the premise of my question doesn't have anything to do with him going to play wide receiver on Saturday.
Yeah, no, and I can appreciate you saying that because, we've talked about that in the past too, when people bring up like the culture problem and stuff like that. But that's not at all where I thought you were going, to be honest. The one thing I thought you were going to push back on, and the reason why I did feel like I had to jump in to a certain degree on Twitter was because I don't care if people are arguing, like, we differ on opinions from time to time. It's actually not very often. I almost wish we differed more because probably make this more entertaining. But the one thing, like when people start questioning journalistic integrity and stuff like that, because that's like your job, right? Like, so I think that's the one thing that from my perspective, I even took issue with people saying, but I don't know how you felt about that.
Yeah. I mean, if you question my integrity, I just laugh because like, I know who I am. I know how hard I've worked to get where I am. I know what I'm all about. I don't have any doubts that, like I said, a fair, valid question to an important member of the team about an important play and about how they're going to avoid it going forward. And if it was, answered at all or answered respectfully, or even, I don't want to talk about that play, it's in the past, let's talk about the Bengals, probably would have become nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll
in
see.
fact, George has used that exact line this year before when.
Okay. Well, we will. Anything else to add to that? Because there were a couple other boxes I want to check here. But
no, I don't think so. I mean, yeah.
We probably could have spent an entire episode on this, but we won't do so. I'm sure the conversation will continue on Alan's Twitter feed. So we'll tell you where to find that.
I'm sure it is continuing right now.
Some good news to talk about here. The Pro Bowl. TJ Watt, Cam Heyward, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Chris Boswell, the members of the Pittsburgh Steelers that were named to the Pro Bowl. I'll be honest, Alan, people might think I'm going an anti-Minkah thing here. I'm not. Where's Christian Kuntz? He should be in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. As I joked with Christian earlier this year in the locker room, I am not qualified to tell you who the best long snapper in the NFL is. I'm just not. I'm really
he shows his value when they move into training camp.
I study really hard. I know the game. Like, I think a lot better than most. I cannot tell you who the best long snapper is. I can't.
We said this last year, though. Alan, he showed his value last year. Move-in day to training camp in Latrobe. That is where Christian Kuntz, to me, became the best long snapper in the NFL.
Christian told me that the most value of a long snapper is blocking and tackling on punts. That there's not that big of a difference between the best and the worst one in terms of how the ball is actually snapped. It's all about not letting blocks come up the A-gap and then tackling downfield. And then he added that he doesn't have any tackles this year. So I don't know that he's necessarily making his own case very
he's making
well.
his own. Yeah, he's going against himself.
Yeah.
All right, but anyways, in terms of the other players, T.J. Watt, Cam Heyward, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Chris Boswell, some of those we could certainly have seen coming. The one Minkah Fitzpatrick, I didn't necessarily think would make the Pro Bowl. He himself said he didn't think that he would make the Pro Bowl because of the lack of splash plays. What's your take on that and what he had to say about it?
Yeah, you know what's really interesting about that is that kind of gave the canned response of like, hey man, it's the Pro Bowl, it's a popularity contest, it's mostly name recognition. Like, you win it once, you're pretty good bet to win it again, unless you have a really bad year. Like, and then somebody actually kind of corrected me that Minkah was like 8th in the fan vote, and that it was actually the players that put him into the top 3. And I thought, man, that's really interesting. Like, and so I guess to me, the thought process there is, if you're an offensive player in the AFC, what to you makes someone a good safety? Like, what are you remembering about your games against that person, like, and your interactions with the Steelers defense? And, we've talked a lot about how Minkah just makes the middle of the Steelers defense a total no-fly zone, and the teams are totally just avoiding throwing the ball at him. And so my guess is, nobody in the AFC with really like overwhelming stats, outside of like Kyle Hamilton, not another couple of players with that sort of like, hey, he's there every year pedigree. And I think maybe that remembrance of those offenses saying like, hey man, when we played the Steelers, we changed everything we did to not throw the ball in the middle of the field against Minkah Fitzpatrick. So I'm voting for him. I think that's kind of an interesting thought as to why he became Pro Bowl.
Saw a glimpse into that. I don't remember which episode of Hard Knocks it was, but both the Ravens and Bengals teams, like when they were talking about the Steelers, were talking about the defense, and they like say they still circle Minkah Fitzpatrick every week. Like, okay, just because he doesn't have the turnovers, he's still somebody that offenses are avoiding. They want to know where he's at before the play. They want to make sure that he's accounted for. And to me, that's still a testament of the impact that he brings to the defense. Even if you aren't seeing it every week in the box score, maybe the same way that you were when we first acquired him, 22, when he had like 7 picks or whatever it was. The level of play, still a very high-end player. You're just not seeing that splash take place.
Yeah. And I think usually I think that's an interesting like upset pick, in that like it's kind of cool to me that the players are the ones that saw it through, maybe like, hey, the splat. And also, like, if there was a safety in the AFC with 6 interceptions, I'm sure he would have gone ahead of Minkah. But as like a tiebreaker, when everyone kind of like looked like, I think that was, it's just really interesting to me that's kind of what pushed him over the top.
It's interesting because this is an NFC player, but the NFL leader in interceptions, Kirby Joseph, with 9, did not make the Pro Bowl, which is pretty wild.
But I mean, that to me is the classic, like, hey, the fan vote. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, the Pro Bowl is so interesting because especially now that the players have their own All-Pro. Like, there's a why am I blanking on? The NFLPA does their own All-Pro. So like you have like the players All-Pro, and then you have the Pro Bowl, which is this weird like amalgamation of fans. And do coaches vote on that too? I don't even remember.
No.
I think somebody, I think it's like fans, players, and someone else, some other group. It kind of makes you wonder, like, what is the point of this? Like what are we trying to learn about people by like telling us who the Pro Bowlers are? And also, there isn't even a game anymore, so right. I don't know. It just feels like this weird thing that's like mostly just tradition. If I was a player, I would put a lot more stock in the players All Pro, like what the rest of the players think about me, and the panel. Which has writers and former players and broadcasters and all that on it, as opposed to like this weird half fan vote that I don't really know anybody understands how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the other players go, mentioned, not really any surprise that T.J. Watt, Cam Heyward, Chris Boswell are joining Minkah Fitzpatrick there. Anything to add on those guys? And also, I know that you had mentioned, depending on the amount of Steelers there, maybe consider a trip to covering the Pro Bowl games. Any thought to that?
Still in consideration.
Okay.
If we can't make the Super Bowl happen, that might be Plan B.
Okay.
I want to cover the Super Bowl this year. Really, and shocked and dismayed at what we've seen out of New Orleans, with the terrorist attack there. And I hope that sort of the planning of the Super Bowl will be able to be something that can be kind of something that those affected can look forward to, and that this isn't something that continues or lingers. And obviously, I know we've got a lot of people, even local ties, affected. So, yeah, I mean, that notwithstanding, I'm really hoping that we can go to New Orleans. And if not, Orlando looks pretty attractive right now, given the number of Steelers. And also, the other part about the Pro Bowl is there will be about 50 alternates added to this Pro Bowl roster between now and the time the game is played, because everybody who's even like a little bit banged up will pull out. And then also, of course, the players that are in the Super Bowl won't play. So like, if the Steelers aren't in the Super Bowl, there could be even more. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 guys that are potential alternates: Najee Harris, Russell Wilson, Zach Frazier, Patrick Queen. Like, there could be a number of guys who could be potential alternates if the Steelers don't end up in the Super Bowl, which, I mean, I think right now is looking.
Did they list
likely.
alternates? Because I saw like there were teams that were putting out like what first alternate, second. Like I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah, so they do come out with like a few initial alternates, but they like often fly through that list, and then are just picking guys. Well, who it wasn't like Tyler Huntley a Pro Bowler one year, like when he was like backing up for Lamar. Like by the end of it, they're just like, all right, who is alive with a right arm that would like to be the AFC quarterback in the Pro Bowl? Like, please, anybody.
There was this is going back quite a bit, but I remember there was an AFC Pro Bowl team back when they still did the actual game. David Garrard, Matt Schaub, Vince Young. Those were the AFC representatives for the Pro Bowl.
I mean, nobody watched the Pro Bowl. Do you care about this new format? Do you like
no.
What are your thoughts about what should be here?
I don't know what the answer is, but it's not compelling to me personally. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I guess some of the clips are kind of fun to, like the dodgeball or whatever, kind of fun to go and watch, but no, like it's not reeling me in still, regardless of the format change or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I don't really know what the right answer is. I can't. Here's what I think. I think they should pick a Pro Bowl roster like they do. Have the Pro Bowl games like they've been doing. Whatever you have, here's your all-stars. They're doing dumb stuff. Play whatever. I don't know. I think the flag football part of it should be like a bigger, like with flag football going into the Olympics, like do like the NHL does with it's a 3-on-3 mini tournament. Like give me like team whatever. I don't know. It's team Lamar versus team Joe Burrow versus team Jared Goff, and pick some like 7 on and have guys compete against one another. And I think flag football can be fun to watch. I don't know. I think that like emphasizing that part of it to me, especially considering that flag football is going to be in the Olympics, and players who might want to be in the Olympics would then have some reason to want to participate in that, because like, hey, this is the thing that if you go do it in the Pro Bowl, you're getting some experience doing something you've never done before that you might want to do in the future.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think he said 7-on-7, like you wouldn't do the 11-on-11s.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really. I've never seen like 11-on-11 flag football played at that level. I don't know how you include the linemen and the other way. Right. Although it would be really fun to like watch the linemen out there playing wide receiver. Like you still have to pick the lineman, even though it's only 7-on-7. I'd be down with that. But yeah, I don't know. To me, like that's the missed opportunity here, is that the league is obviously trying to push flag football. It's going to be in the Olympics. Why not just make the Pro Bowl like a flag football exhibition, even if you played it 11-on-11? Like, I don't know if that's possible, but like,
yeah,
I'd be in. I think it would give. And heck, make your little Pro Bowl tournament, right? You have your little teams of NFL guys. Put the USA Flag Football World Championship team in that tournament, and let's see how those guys do up against the NFLers.
Okay. Hey, I mean, throw that out. Maybe that's the way to get Zach Smith to watch the Pro Bowl. I don't know. Let's try something new.
There is like a dude who is the quarterback of the American flag football team who is like talking crap on like the idea that
He's very
NFLers were
confident.
just going to come in and take his job. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I know
like,
exactly.
I would be wildly entertained to watch that guy have to put up or shut up in a Pro Bowl flag football setting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Oh, last thing that we got to get to for sure before we get out of here, and I should have done this at the beginning. The injury reports. Donte Jackson questionable. The 3 guys that they returned to practice all rolled out as we kind of expected. Roman, Wilson, Cole Holcomb, Logan Lee not going to play in this one. Donte Jackson questionable though. We've kind of talked about this back thing kind of being touch and go, like the way that they're managing it. Could he maybe go, but then have to exit early? Like, how do you plan for that in terms of the helmet math? If it's not him, maybe continue to see more of Corey Trice as opposed to James Pierre. What's your read on that?
Yeah. He said he's like day-to-day still going to try to go. It doesn't seem like seems like at this point, truly questionable. There isn't really an answer. Maybe one of these guys where we get a greater update tomorrow after walkthrough. It is tough to dress a guy that has not finished a game now twice since week 14 and was just again aggravated in practice this week. Like, I don't know how you can have faith that Donte Jackson is going to play the whole game. I'm also not sure how big of a drop off there is from Corey Trice, from him to Corey Trice at this point. I don't know. We had talked about maybe Corey getting some slot work. Obviously, that would be out the window if he's got to replace Donte Jackson. I just don't know if you're the Steelers and you're looking at like, okay, because remember the Eagles game, they were playing short. Trice wasn't dressed. So when Jackson got hurt, they had to just go with Pierre because he has to be dressed because he's their best punt gunner. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way around that. They could scratch Scotty Miller. They've been dressing 6 wide receivers. I don't think they need to. He hasn't been playing special teams. So, like, there's a way for them to do it. I just don't know if I don't know. I think we'll wait and see on that one. But, obviously the way they covered last time was they left Joey on T. Higgins and they kind of clouded to Jamar Chase with Donte Jackson doing most of the work. But then when Chase went inside, it was some of Beanie, it was some of Cam Sutton, and there was a lot of Minkah over the top on that side of the field. I wouldn't say that kind of regardless of who plays over there, I'm not sure the game plan is going to change too much in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I am curious. So, like, especially for this matchup, that's what I keep going back to in terms of like Donte versus Corey Trice. Like, even if Donte is able to go to a degree, I wonder, like, to me, Corey Trice should get a good amount of reps, not only because of the matchup, but also trying to find out how much of an answer he can be for you in 2025, 2026 and beyond. So I don't know. I think that there's still so much intrigue there, right? Because like you like him as like a lottery ticket as a prospect, but like the body of work is so limited still. You're still trying to find the answers as to what he really is.
Well, and that also is the part of it that, I mean, like you're talking about, okay, Donte Jackson, back injury, he's dealing with it going in, could aggravate it at any time and have to come out. Joey Porter coming off a knee injury, first game back. Now, he said he's good to go, but like, is he 100%, limited in any way? And is there a possibility of him re-injuring? And then Trice is like probably the most injury-prone guy in the entire team. So there's a real I almost feel like they have to give themselves extra bodies in the secondary somehow this week because there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they need to cover all their bases. The more you're saying, like, I think they got to find a way to have the extra.
Got to find a way to dress them all, I think. Like,
I
don't see how any way around it you want to cut yourself off a guy short there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Scotty Miller. I don't know. Sorry, you're not going to be able to be the lone receiver out there in 13 personnel, but we're going to have to make something else work.
Mike Williams to the rescue.
There we go. Alan, tell the people where, I think everybody knows where to find you because they've been hate tweeting you all day, but tell the people where to find you.
Look for the giant dumpster fire on Twitter, and my handle will be in there somewhere. Also, at @Saunders_PGH on Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now, site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so I can get paid, and like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of Steelers Morning Rush, Steelers Afternoon Drive, Sights and Sounds, our locker room videos, including my interaction with George Pickens, which is one video up here on the channel. If you didn't watch it, Go check it out, and I'm sure you'll let me know what you think of it.
Sure they will. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. If you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, you'll find us there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok, and then find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.